it's Crystal Everdeen, and today I want to share with you some hobby ideas for you to try out this summer. And if you are interested in giving any of these hobbies a try, I will leave links to materials that you may need in the description box down below. But with that, let's go ahead and get started. So of course, the very first hobby that I want to share with you today, and I highly recommend, is crochet. And that's because I actually share so many crochet related videos on my channel already, ranging from beginner friendly tutorials to more advanced to crochet with me. So lots of crochet videos, hence I am a big crochet fan, a big crochet advocate, hence the yarn shelf. But again, if this is a hobby that you were interested in getting into, I have so many beginner friendly tutorials as well as a crocheting for beginners video on my channel, and there's just a whole bunch of other books and guides and blogs and videos out there for you to get started on crochet. So that is one that's really popular and really beloved as well, and of course there's a lot of resources for you to learn this. And what I really like about crochet is that it doesn't require too many materials, so all you really need is a yarn and a hook. And the possibilities with crochet are endless. You can make so many things, so don't just think like, oh, crochet is just for like blankets and scarves. No, you can make so many projects with crochet. And just a few examples here, you can make crochet tops. Crochet poncho is my latest crochet project. You can also make crochet amigurumis, which are like these little crochet dolls, these little crochet plushies. You can make crochet bags, you can make crochet hair accessories. Whatever you can imagine, you can create with crochet. Again, I'm a big advocate for crochet because it's one of my favorite hobbies. But okay, moving on from crochet to something fairly similar, knitting. Now, knitting and crochet are different, although they do get confused with one another a lot. Crochet is often called knitting just because I feel like knitting is more popular. So crochet is with a hook and yarn, and knitting is with needles and yarn. And the reason why they're different is obviously the way that you actually make the stitches, and then the stitches themselves are also different. So it's different techniques and different stitches, so a different like look and a different feel to them, and that's why they're different. And some people prefer knitting, some people prefer crochet. I am able to do both, but I prefer crochet. But if you're just not getting the hang of crochet, don't really like it, try knitting. Maybe you'll find that you like knitting better. Another hobby to try out is punch needling. You can make things like little coasters and room decor and other types of artwork. It's another yarn related hobby, so of course I had to personally try it out, and I think it's really fun. Similarly, another yarn related hobby is rug tufting, which I personally love. So I actually went to a studio to make my very first rug ever, and I fell in love with making rugs, so much so that I actually asked my husband to make me a rug tufting frame that I have used once since he's made it like a year and a half ago. But that's something that I want to get into. I just need to find the time. But if you want to try out rug tufting, I would again suggest that you first try it out at a studio and see how you like it, and then maybe invest in all of the materials that you may need to continue your rug tufting hobby. Of course, you gotta make sure that you actually enjoy it before you spend all that money into the frame and the yarn and the tufting gun. So I highly recommend it. You could just look up rug tufting studios in your area and try it out. Another hobby you can get into is embroidery. Now, it's similar to punch needling, however, the technique is different and the tools are different too. So you are still making artwork on a like fabric canvas, however, you're using a needle and embroidery thread as opposed to like a punch needling needle. And the artwork is more precise since it is a thin embroidery needle and thread as opposed to a punch needle and yarn. So that's another hobby that you could also try out. You could either make individual works of art and use it as like room decor or something, or you could embroider clothing, which is really fun and cool and unique as well. Felting is another interesting hobby that I always thought was pretty cool, but I never tried myself. So essentially what it looks like is that you get this material, right, the felting material, and you just poke it, and you shape it and morph it into whatever you want to create. And I think that is so fascinating. And the projects that are mostly made with felting, at least that I found, are these little like creatures, these adorable little creatures. But essentially you can make anything with felting. Whatever you can imagine, you can create through felting. You just gotta, figure out how to make the shape. But I thought that was a really interesting and fun looking hobby as well. There's also something called macrame, which I always thought was very similar to crochet. However, you don't use any like needles or hooks like in crochet or knitting. You just use your hands. And what macrame is just making knots, which I think is insane. So you're making all of these designs just with knots. I don't even, how would you, what? So again, that's definitely something I would need a kit or tutorial or some sort of guidance to get started in, because how the heck do I make designs with knots? Like that would be, I could probably figure it out on my own by like drawing it out and like trying to like plan it. Okay, I have to make a knot here and not here and not here in order for it to look like this. But that would take me quite a while, but the projects come out beautiful. So macrame is another hobby that maybe you could try out. Sewing is another really popular and practical hobby to get into. I actually personally have always been interested in learning how to sew, and I kind of already do know how to sew. Like I know how to kind of use my sewing machine and mend things and sew by hand. However, I don't know how to like think of a design and then just like know how to make it. Like, okay, I know how to, make a certain fit or how to sew certain materials for it to fit a certain way. I can't just think of a design and make it like I can with crochet, but I think that just comes with practice, again, like with any other hobby. So first I would probably need to start out with kits and patterns and tutorials, and then I'd be able to like imagine my design and then just make it and just like know like the steps, like okay, I would need to sew this and the darts and the I don't know any other sewing terms, but yeah, what was I getting at? Sewing is a really cool hobby and also again very practical. So if you're interested in, learning how to make your own clothes to either save money, or you're just a very creative individual who really wants to express themselves by making unique clothing, this is also like the perfect hobby for you. And again, since it's so popular of a hobby, there's so many resources out there for you to try out, and you do kind of have to invest in a sewing machine if you really want to get into it, but you could first learn how to sew by hand, and all that requires is just a needle and thread and fabric. Quilting is another fun and iconic hobby. I know that when we think of quilting, we just think of like a grandma hobby, but you know what? Grandma hobbies are really fun. There's a lot of people who think knitting and crochet are grandma hobbies, but not gonna lie, I've been crocheting since I was 9 years old, and I've been loving it ever since. So it's for everyone. It's for everyone. Now, I have never actually done any quilting myself, but I could imagine that you could do more with quilting than just making quilts. Like, you don't need, so many quilts in your life. You get to make like 2 of them. You're like, okay, I'm good with the number of quilts I have. Like, why would I make more quilts? I would think that you could use your quilting skills to also make clothing as well, and other items probably. So don't just limit yourself to making just quilts when you get into the hobby of quilting. Again, I feel like if I got into quilting, I would probably make like 1 quilt and be like, wow, that's my very first quilt. I love it. Maybe make a second one just to be like, wow, look how much I improved from my first quilt to my second quilt. But now that I have mastered quilting, I'm going to use those skills to make my own like jacket or something, I don't know. But I think quilting is cool. That's another one of my hobbies that's like on the list of me to eventually get into, probably when I'm like grandma age. Then of course there's painting, which is a super duper popular hobby, but did you know that there's so many different kinds of painting? There's like acrylic painting, there's watercolor painting, what else is there? There's oil painting, you could paint in a journal, on a canvas, you could paint on clothes, just so many different ways to paint. So if you love, painting a paintbrush on something, definitely try it out and do it more this summer. You could paint on paper, you could paint on furniture, you could paint on pretty much anything as long as you get the right paint. And there's different, mediums to paints, there's different, like, again, kinds of paints. So that's definitely something that you could try out, see if you're interested in pursuing that hobby. If there is anything you're like, wow, I wish that was a different color, or wow, I wish, that had a cool design on it, you could paint it. Similarly, in popularity, there's drawing. You could get into drawing this summer and really practice those skills, really lock in, and by the end of the summer, you can improve your drawing skills depending on how much you practice and how much you really dedicate time into learning how to draw, anatomy or landscape or, anything like that. That's also a really fun, popular hobby and a really cool skill to have. You could draw on a paper, or you could draw digitally as well on like an iPad, or you could get one of those digital illustrating pads and connect it to your computer and then just like draw on that and it shows up on your computer, you know what I mean? Anywho, so digital, physical, drawing is just a really fun, cool hobby and skill you could work on this summer. You could also get into chalk art, which is a very summery thing to do. So that's kind of like a form of drawing as well, I guess, but just with chalk. Jewelry making is also a great hobby. Now you could just make like friendship bracelets with like the little plastic beads and stuff, or you could get actual little like metal charms and make jewelry as well. You can make earrings and bracelets and necklaces, so many different types of charms and techniques with jewelry making. You could like really get into it and start making like rings and designs and stuff, or you could just get the charms and add them to bracelets and chains and stuff and make your own little jewelry for yourself or for your friends, and really expand on that if you want to. So jewelry making is another really fun hobby, especially during the summertime. You could also learn how to make your own candles, which I feel like candle making has become fairly popular within the past couple years. So candle making is another hobby that you can get into if you want. Baking is another really great hobby to get into. I know it's a little bit harder to get into it during the summertime since you don't want your kitchen to be warm and outside is warm and it's just like hot all the time. But it is a really fun and practical skill for you to learn how to bake. Similarly, cooking is another great hobby to get into. Super practical in everyday life. Everyone will love you. Everyone loves someone who knows how to cook and like loves to cook. Personally, I am not someone who really has a passion for cooking, but I know how important it is to know how to cook. So if you have like no idea how to cook, this is a great hobby for you to try out this summer when you have time to really learn at least basic skills on how to cook. I guess just like beginner friendly dishes that will hopefully lead you into learning how to make more complicated dishes or more intricate dishes that will help feed you throughout your life, so you're not always ordering out or only making microwavable foods. Another really popular hobby is gardening. I've heard that it brings a lot of people like peace and serenity when they're out there gardening. Personally, I don't really like being outside that much, so I don't understand, but if you're like an outdoorsy person who loves plants and stuff, I think gardening would be a great hobby for you. Also, you could do gardening in a sense where you're growing your own food, which I think is wild and like really awesome. Or you could just make your backyard pretty and do gardening in that sense. So gardening is also a really cool hobby that you could try out, again, if you love like plants and nature and outdoorsiness. Speaking of outdoorsy people who would like gardening, you would also probably like hiking and just being in nature, maybe camping as a hobby as well. Just like being outside would be a great hobby for you. I know a lot of people really love hiking, so not only is that a really great way for you to get outside, get some fresh air and exercise, but also just a great way to meet other people. I know there's like full-on communities of hikers and stuff. If you have a dog, you could go ahead and hike with your dog as well, spend time with your dog, and I'm sure they would have a blast too. So that's another really great hobby for you to get into if, again, you really love nature and being outside. Photography is another great hobby for you to get into this summer. You could improve on your photography skills, maybe try out photography on your phone first, try out like different angles and lighting and all that stuff, and then if you really love it, really want to take the next step, then you could invest in a camera and so on and so forth. And yeah, so photography is more than just snapping a picture wherever, just standing and snap, stand and snap. No, there's a lot that goes into it, and if you're really interested in capturing amazing shots, that's definitely a hobby that you should look into. There's also pottery making / ceramics. I'm not sure if they're actually the same thing or if they're different, but essentially making bowls and plates and mugs and vases out of clay. Now with this one, you would definitely have to invest in all the materials that you may need to not only make the thing out of clay. You need the spinny thing, you need the actual clay, but you also need like glaze, and you also need this thing called a kiln, which is really expensive. And in order for you to actually make the pottery like solid, you need to burn it in this kiln, and those are again really expensive. So if you want to get into pottery making, I would highly suggest that you first book doing pottery in a studio. That way they have the materials for you already, and then you could do it there and then see if you could invest in furthering your pottery making hobby. Or you could just use air dry clay. I just know that if you don't have a kiln, if you don't fire it in a kiln, you can't make things for you to like eat off of. So you can't make like mugs and cups and bowls and stuff, because it's not safe if it's not burnt, or rather fired in a kiln first. So definitely look into that before you make anything that you would eat from. Make sure that you research that first. But if you just want to make little like decorations or anything like that, then I would suggest that you first start off with air dry clay, maybe even polymer clay, depending on what you want to make. If you just want to make things that are like itty bitty tiny, then try out the polymer clay. If you want to make things that are a little bit bigger, maybe try the air dry clay. Just working with clay / pottery is a really fun hobby for you to get into this summer. Again, I don't really know too much about these, so definitely do your research, but that's just another idea for you. Gaming is another really popular hobby that so many people really love. So if you love being indoors and playing on either your console or your PC, there are so many different types of games out there for you. So if you're thinking of gaming, you're thinking only like Call of Duty and first-person shooters, there are actually so many different types of games out there, from the nostalgic games like Mario and Donkey Kong and Legend of Zelda and Pokemon, to those types of games where it's like the first-person shooter ones, or strategy games, or just like chill games like Animal Crossing. So many types of games out there for you. So whatever, floats your boat, you could definitely find a game that you'll enjoy. There's also like horror games, so if you really love that thrill, there's games where you could play with other people. There's games where there's like a story involved. So many different types of games that you could get into. So gaming is another hobby that you could try out this summer. There's also portable gaming, so you don't have to stay indoors to game, but for the most part, you're probably gonna be indoors when you're gaming. But of course, there's handheld consoles, and you could even play games on your phone if you want to get into that. Although I would highly recommend that you do non-screen related hobbies, but totally up to you. Anywho, another hobby idea for you to pick up this summer is coloring, which I know you're like, coloring? I'm not 4 years old. You know what? Coloring is for everyone. And if it brings you joy, it brings you joy. Who cares? So you could, print out some coloring sheets, or you could get coloring books and start coloring with either, crayon, marker, colored pencils. Coloring is another great hobby to get into. There's also journaling. You could just like write down all of your thoughts and anything that comes to mind with journaling. That definitely helps people get all of their thoughts together, all their ideas in one place, and is a great way to express oneself. There's also scrapbooking, which is something that I really love to do. So you could print out pictures and just like decorate it, get little pieces of paper or little pieces of pretty much anything and add it to your scrapbook. Especially during the summer, you can capture all of your summer memories and put them in a booklet in your little scrapbook. There's also more active hobbies like rollerblading, roller skating, cycling, hiking, like I said. Running is one that got really popular for some reason. There's surfing, swimming, and sports like baseball and basketball if you have friends who really want to get together and play a sport. There's frisbee, dance, bowling. You can also really get into learning how to do makeup or nails or hair. There's really so many things that you could really get into as a hobby this summer, or really any time during the year. If you're interested in trying any of the hobbies that I suggested in this video, again, materials for those hobbies will be linked in the description box down below for you to get started. Let me know which hobbies you're interested in trying out, which hobbies you already love, and which hobbies I probably should have included in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you love crochet, I have so many crochet related videos on my channel. I highly recommend that you try them out. There are videos ranging from beginner friendly crochet to more advanced, to crochet with me, styling my crochet, and so much more. And I will be trying to get into other hobbies as well if you're interested in following my journey. Also, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Both are at Crystal Everdeen. It's a fun time, and I would love to see you there. Thank you so much again for watching. Don't forget to click that red subscribe button if you have not already, so I can see you next time. Bye, and have a magical day.